Welcome to the Anton Stentner podcast. Today we're talking about jobs are gone, inflation is back, the Fed's white lie, and what to buy next in real estate.
Brother, they told us the U.S. economy added 1 million jobs. And you got the Federal Reserve, the job market looks good. You've got Wall Street, everything's okay. And they're wrong. And all of a sudden, we just literally lose almost 1 million jobs in the latest BLS revision. And this is a mistake that's starting to change everything. And this is a change for people's money. And especially if you're looking or thinking about real estate here in the future. So the problem, the government released a jobs report from the BLS that had a massive revision of minus 911,000 jobs to the downside. That's 1 million they overcounted. This isn't just a minor error. This is huge. We haven't lost this many jobs, Benji, since the great financial crisis.
So technically not lost jobs, didn't add as many jobs, right?
Correct. We didn't add as many jobs. But when they revise it down, because it was already baked into the data, it shows up as a loss. It is a negative revision. So it's like the jobs were pretended to be there, and now those fake jobs are gone. And it's why the consumer and people we know right now is like, things are getting tight. I'm feeling pinched. My check's not going as far as it could be. The normal humans are being pinched. And so we're going to break down like what's really happening at the Federal Reserve, why they're too slow to act, and how you can see a way through this chaos. And then we're going to talk about specific opportunities that are popping up because of the potential for interest rates, and then how real estate and certain companies will play into that opportunity.
Awesome. So let's talk about the first topic, the broken BLS. You want to tell us what BLS stands for?
Yeah, the BLS is just the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And guess how many people they employ?
1,000? 5,000?
2,100 people with a budget of $655 freaking million. But they're saying, oh, we're under-resourced. I mean, you got over $500 million. And they're saying, it's really hard to figure out all this data in the U.S. economy. And so, making this monumental error of 1 million jobs not created and this revision to the downside, it's not because our data is bad. But when you start to look at this, BLS uses these surveys. And do you like responding to surveys?
No.
No one, our subscribers, do you guys like responding to surveys? No one likes responding to surveys. So they send out these surveys, and then what happens is these businesses fill them out, and the response rate, surprise, surprise, over time is massively trending down. And then they'll send it in sometimes months later. That's where these revisions come from. So they'll get a small sample size and they'll say, oh, we believe this is what's happening inside the job market, when only 30, 40, 50% of the people have responded. And then they get another 10, 15, 20% over the next few months. What I believe we should be doing with that $655 billion is we should be forcing from the national level a new data infrastructure that keeps up with the speed of the U.S. economy. We can't send out emails and letters and call people and be like, hey, how's your guys', you hiring people? What are you doing? It's too slow for the speed of our economy today, and then we wouldn't get these massive revisions. So the data's a mess, but the Fed knows that, and this is going to be my key, and this is why I'm saying the Fed's white lie. I think the Fed knows they're slow to act. I think the Fed's doing it on purpose. And that's what's going to create this opportunity that we're talking about today.
Chamal Papatia from the All In podcast talks about how the problem with the jobs report is the process in which they gather it. And, this guy's a billionaire, so he's like looking at it with kind of like first principles kind of perspective. But the reason it's interesting to me because when they collect jobs data, it's from everybody like a Microsoft to a entrepreneur that just has a small business.
Exactly.
And so, by the way, I have a small business. I can't think of how I report those numbers right now. It's probably through my bookkeeper that reports to the state.
No, you actually get something that you fill out. We've filled it out before.
So it's probably never really that accurate.
No.
Like month to month, right?
No.
Yeah. So the reason I bring it up is he said using technology, some
Yes.
kind of blockchain, make it a requirement.
Yes.
So it's more accurate because if this isn't accurate, then the decisions they make based off of it will not be the right ones.
They're making decisions based on data that's 90 days, 120 days old. When we live in the world of the smartphone technology right now, let me give you an example. If each state simply revised their database for unemployment claims, employment claims, B&O taxes, things like that, and that was uploaded and anonymized to the blockchain, that data could be hitting us instantly to the federal level so they can be making decisions on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis instead of looking in the rearview mirror.
Isn't it better then to just assume they might not fix it and not rely on any of the reports they put out and have a better method? So, I mean, I think a better method, especially us, talking about the local real estate market, just to talk to people. Like
Bingo.
Have honest conversations,
Yep.
have a good network, go to networking events,
Yes.
have like better data that's real time. And I know that's all kind of anecdotal or based off of like casual conversation, but dude, better because it's real time versus last year time.
And know what they're doing because we're explaining it to you. We're showing it to our subscribers and our regular listeners so that you can take advantage of this. This is your opportunity over the next 12 months. That's the big deal. That's really what this is about.
All right. Next topic is inflation. Is it back yet?
Inflation shot up, Federal Reserve massively jacked up rates, and that slowed the economy down. We got a large, quick drop in inflation. Remember, with their data, they said inflation is transitory. And how wrong were they? And I think did I write down that number? Oh, yes. When their internal forecasting in 2021 was projecting 2022 inflation to be between 1.6 and 2.5 when it was 6.6. That's how bad this data can lag. So we need to understand that one, their data massively lags. Two, that inflation is not going away as fast as we wanted, and they're going to let the economy burn hot for a while. And we saw a couple things show up. We had CPI this week, and we had PPI this week. And the Federal Reserve started shifting their tone. So they have a dual mandate, full employment, low inflation. Low inflation, their target is 2%. That target was arbitrarily chosen. So they could have easily chosen 3. And so Logan Montashami, Housing Wire, says it really well. The Fed talks about inflation until the labor market breaks, and then it's labor over inflation. I really like the way he says that. Labor is greater than inflation. Why? Because if labor breaks, we head into a spot where all of a sudden you start moving into deflation because nobody can buy anything. And then the cost of everything starts dropping. So the Fed is moving from inflation over to labor. Okay, because of these bad jobs data. You even heard Jerome Powell move from hawkish to dovish and admit, hey, we're going to have to put in some rate cuts. We had PPI, which is the producer price index. This week, PPI came in negative to the downside. That's what producers pay for the input of goods. So what they would pay for the parts to make the cell phone. That showed actual deflation this week. And then CPI came in slightly hot, CPI came in at 0.4, which is definitely hot, and 2.9% year over year. But if you take 0.4, because that's a rise, so you would take 0.4 month over month times 12. 4 times 12 is 48, which would put CPI at 4.8. When that data came out, what did the Federal Reserve and the bond market do? Absolutely nothing. Bonds didn't move this week because even though that was hot, the bond market said labor's a more important thing, and they started pre-pricing in the rate cut. The rate cut is priced in already into the bond market. That's why interest rates are about 6.25 on the 30-year fixed, and they're under 6 for FHA and VA today. No buy down. That means with a buy down, you could be 5.5.
Wow.
5.25 today.
For VA, you said?
VA and FHA. I mean, we're talking first-time home buyers and amazing people that served our government, served our country. And the other part of this, what we're leading into, so this is a little foreshadowing, for the people who don't have the patience to get to the end, is that this lower rates then increase demand. They allow more buyers to qualify. And the Fed's favorite metric is still PCE, but they're ignoring that. Why? Because of labor. Labor is more important. With labor problems, inflation just goes away. So this is where, kind of moving into the next section here, this is where the Fed is a little bit of their lie, okay? And this is where I want us to pay a little bit of attention, because the Fed slowness is what is creating the opportunity. So I want to say the Fed's slowness is a feature, not a flaw. And they introduced this thing called flexible average inflation targeting, FAIT, F-A-I-T. And what they explain is this allows them to deal with inflation over a longer period of time and just pick an average. So what they basically said at the last meeting was, well, in the decade prior, we ran below 2. And this decade, we're probably going to run a little hotter. Okay, this is Anton paraphrasing, not their words. Well, because of flexible average inflation targeting, we can let it run a little bit hot. So consumers were going to feel pinched. Okay, let's keep that out there. Prices are going to feel high. And that we can exhibit deliberate patience. We can allow the policy to work. We can allow it to cook. And there was Federal Reserve members that said, well, if it's necessary, we can always just cut fast. Okay? Why? Because they're looking at old data, number one. Number two, they know that they can let it run hot if labor starts to break, and labor's starting to break. And everyone, they're kind of all pissed off at the Federal Reserve. They're like, oh, they don't know anything. They've got bad data. I kind of also want to debunk the myth a little bit. They got so much data, it's not even funny. I believe there's like 1,000 people that work for the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, regardless if they have data, they have a lot of people that's supposed to be getting the good data.
Bingo. And they're all PhDs and
Oh my gosh.
economists, and they have real-time indicators. They've got nowcasting models. They've got all this data that they're looking at, but because of the way they get the data, and because our economy is based on how the economy was before. What do you feel like things are speeding up? Like life in general is speeding up for you, your family, your kids, your friends, your business.
Speeding up, you mean in terms of technology?
In terms of technology and just like how fast everything is happening.
I think, yeah, like it's getting fairly faster. I mean, in some ways it's slower, but yeah, I think technology for sure is making making business, and making just the process of getting something done faster.
Bingo. And the Federal Reserve is looking at economic models that they learned back when they were in college. And none of them are young. Let's just be blunt about this. And our economy is fundamentally changing with the AI revolution right in front of our eyes. There's going to be freaking robots everywhere. They just offered Elon $1 trillion at Tesla. His new pay package will make him a trillionaire. He has to deliver something like $8 trillion in value to Tesla shareholders. P.S. If you played Tesla this week, oh man, that was a good trade. Wow. Because you saw Tesla set up perfect inside the trade. Yes, I trade a little stock market, and it just rocketed. Why? Because of that belief in what he's going to do. Because he's delivered on a lot of these things before. And robots are going to change things. I'm sitting in my garage working out. The delivery driver pulled up, and there was 2 people in the car. Someone was in the car. Someone walked out and set the package down. Someone walked back, got back in the car. They drove off. That whole process, and I'm not saying I want jobs to go away. I'm just trying to use this as an example. That whole process doesn't require a human. So as soon as, you've got your Tesla cars and your Tesla robots, the Model Y could have pulled up, a robot could have walked out and set it on my porch, and I would have said thanks to the robot, just like I said thanks to the delivery driver. P.S. Tell your Amazon person you love them and smile at them. It's really funny. I intentionally do that when someone drops a package off and I'm near. Hey, thank you for delivering that. You wouldn't believe how much they light up. I don't think anyone ever tells them thank you. And, we all get them. Everyone gets, at least one a week. And so the Fed, they got a huge amount of data, but they're slow. And so this matters to you because this calculated delay basically is getting ready to unleash the firestorm, the paladin, if you played Call of Duty, in a specific part of our economy. And it's this sector, and it's not always what you think. Section 4. You want to kick us off on that one?
Next topic is a rate cut ripple effect. Did the Fed make a decision on rates this week?
So that's next week.
Oh.
The Fed makes a decision next week.
It's just the data that came out this week.
The inflation data and the jobs data came out this week. But what's happened is right now we have 3 rate cuts baked in. 25, 25, 25. You have 75 basis points baked into the market.
So does that mean those VA and FHA could be under 5 potentially?
That's a good question. So buyers, listen to this. Investors, listen, please. When we start talking about rate cuts, the bond market, just like the stock market, is a forward-looking indicator. The bond market has already priced in this week that rate cut. Don't wait to lock until next week or the following week because you're praying rates will go down. They actually might go up. Okay, so the bond market prices in ahead, and then it might slightly bump up. It's not going to go back to 6.5. Here's my feeling and my logical guess here. I believe by spring, you'll be in the high 5s to maybe the low 5s by mid-2026. And what that means is it's going to pull somewhere around 4 to 6 million buyers off the sideline and bring them into the market. And that's a lot of buyers. Made a whole TikTok in regards to that one, and massive people disagreed with me. If you want to know about it, drop it in the comments. I will explain the numbers. But the macro impact of a rate cut is kind of simple. When the Fed reduces the overnight rate, that's the front end of the curve. It starts making everything else down the line cheaper, stimulating the economy by increasing the velocity of money. And it stimulates consumer demand, it stimulates business demand, and it stimulates investment. It's like throwing the rock into the pond. So the Fed throws the first rock, and the ripples that come out are the other parts of the economy. And the primary beneficiaries, okay, so how do we use this to make money? Okay, because we know the Fed is a little too slow, is you're going to see technology explode even faster. Cheaper debt will help the Mag 7 push harder. Cheaper debt will help the hyperscalers scale faster. Expect more AI, expect more R&D, expect more expansion. So I'm talking NVIDIA, Microsoft, Meta, XAI. And did you see the thing that XAI is talking about coming to Seattle?
No, I did not.
Yeah, so they're talking about opening here in Seattle too. What's super interesting is our tech sector just attracts some amazing talent. So now let's flip over to the consumer side. What this does on the consumer side is it lowers the consumer borrowing costs, which increases their ability for consumer spending. Okay. Think big ticket items, cars, vacations, household remodels, but also your HELOCs get cheaper. And as this comes down, this is the unlock. As these rates come down, what happens is there's a couple trillion extra dollars sitting in CDs and money markets right now. And when all of a sudden they can't get 4% for doing nothing, that couple trillion is going to go into real estate and the stock market. Okay. I think the stock market, because the stock market is sitting at all-time highs, I think the stock market, we need to be very cautiously optimistic. So I'm cautiously optimistic over there, and I'm moving into like perma-bull on real estate right now. Literally like rocket on the real estate. Because the financial sector, what's going to happen, like banks and stuff, they're going to get squeezed. So banks are going to get squeezed because as these rates start coming down, a bank brings in $10,000 and they reloan it out, they're not going to get the same interest rates. So banks are going to get squeezed. Another part of the financial sector that's going to explode, though, is your lending. Okay. Loan Depot, Rocket Mortgage. You've been seeing, Open Door, that stock explode because of it. And so there's a lot of these sectors that are getting a nice bump, but, brother, let's talk about our sector. Our sector is the one that's going to go ballistic because it's been overlooked for the last few years.
Yeah, when there's not a lot of attention or it's kind of boring, there's no hype, then it really slows down. People act accordingly, like normal. But then when there's a lot of hype and a lot of headlines, and then people start YouTube channels about flipping homes, or they become like the next Airbnb expert.
Yeah.
Then it's on
all
like
the wholesalers, the Airbnb expert, and everyone was a coach, and they're 22.
So the real estate gold rush is upon us. Tell us what we should know.
Okay. We gotta start like in the beginning. So on the 8th day, no, I'm just kidding. Real estate has been sitting inside of essentially a deep freeze. Real estate has been in a transaction-based recession. The consumers want a price recession because they're like, real estate's too expensive. I want prices to go down. We're in a transaction recession. Right now here in the Seattle Metro, we're selling the same amount of homes we did right at the end of the great financial crisis in 2012. Wow. Okay. I just did the stats yesterday. I did them live. We reviewed them together with our people. Same amount of homes as 2012. So cool. You're at the bottom.
With a higher population.
With a higher population.
That's even more significant.
Higher price and a better economy and a lower unemployment. Like, this is the literal rocket. Second, on a national level, we're selling about the same amount of homes we did on a national level that we did in freaking 1990s. When I was in high school. You were what, elementary?
I was elementary.
Yeah, I love it. And so we're in this transaction-based recession, but what's happening is, now this is why the Fed moving slow is what's creating the opportunity. So they're going to move slow, and because you're seeing the data, you're going to get ahead of this now. So the paradox is the market is dead right now, and it doesn't feel like you should be investing, buying that first-time home. It feels expensive and hard. And Warren Buffett says, be greedy when others are fearful. I need you to turn up your greed just a skosh here. And as these rate cuts continue, they will unlock more and more demand. So there's a mini refinance boom going on right now. All those mortgages that were just originated at 7 or above are being refinanced now. Mortgage refinance applications are up double digit this week because it makes financial sense, which is giving, once again, some of those mortgage originators and some of those banks and stocks like that, good boost. But the problem though is the existing homeowner is still there. And the existing homeowner has a 3%, a 4%, and we're not going to get that low. So we're not going to fully unlock supply, but we are unlocking demand. And remember from previous episodes, we are 6 million units behind. You're about 4 years freaking behind here in new construction. And over the last 2 years, you got another million units behind based on the amount of permits that were issued and development applications that were done. We've also got a bifurcated market. So the rate cut isn't going to fix the housing market. It's just going to increase demand. New construction has a slight oversupply in some areas, specifically in the South. So good opportunities, Texas, South, Arizona, parts of Utah for new construction. But as rates come down, that supply will start to get eaten up. And we're not building enough starter homes. Anything that can really help on that starter home, because we're not going to get that resale seller popping out of the market. So clear winners are going to be home builders and home builder stocks. Pulte, D.R. Horton, Lennar, and then clear winners here in our Seattle metro and throughout the rest of the United States are going to be your small investors, your medium-sized investors, your small builders who can build starter homes or fourplexes or duplexes, who are interested in what we're doing here in Washington State and doing middle housing and ADUs and DADUs. And the Fed's intentional slowness, their broken data system, is going to cause real estate to go wild. And I'm telling you to get in front of it because this is the tip of the iceberg. And I want to give you just a simple kind of action plan here at the end and kind of tie this all together for everyone. Any thoughts or questions from you before we...
No, I'm excited for this gold rush to happen. Not excited for first-time home buyers and what they have to pay, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad when the average price last month in King County was 1.15 and the average price in Snohomish County was $850.
Yikes.
And so a starter home is literally $600,000. And that blows my mind. And we have other episodes talking about why that's a problem here in Washington State and everywhere else. But if the Fed is intentional on their slowness, and we know they're going to use FATE, flexible average inflation targeting. In other words, they're going to let inflation run hotter, and that the BLS data is absolutely 100% imperfect, but that is what's driving our policy decisions. That is what's going directly into the PCE and directly into the Fed. This rate cut's going to have a profound effect and create second-order opportunities. So the opportunity isn't just the macro economy. This is micro, okay? And when I say micro, I'm talking in our backyard here in the Seattle metro and in wherever you live, this may be opportunity. And I believe the biggest opportunity is specifically in two places: building homes at the median and below, building, so I'm lumping building all together as one, building small multifamily. I'm not talking the stacks. I'm not talking the 60 units, 100 units, 600 units. I'm talking duplexes, fourplexes, like up to 20 units. Conversely, flipping it over, purchasing some of the bad debt that has to be refinanced because they're going to have to sell it. I just saw another deal I was reading about in one of the news articles. All of the equity is being wiped out. They're going to lose $20 million in equity on this property, and they're selling it for literally just the loan value because all the equity is gone because it was mismanaged. It was bought under a pro forma that just assumed everything would always go up, and it was bought with cheap debt. Now the debt's more expensive, and the debt's going to be expensive, but that's an opportunity in that multifamily space. Also, it exists in office because it's beat up, but I like multi a little bit better, and love the data centers. And then right here at home in Seattle, during our whole metro, the ADU, DADU play, I think is the greatest thing for people to do. It's very accessible to most investors. That is that starter home product that is below the median, so that demand is massively there. And if you start on those projects today, okay, you'll be ready in 2026 when rates get lower. So for my buyers, my first-time home buyers, okay, I want you thinking about, hey, rates are going to get cheaper, but demand's going to get cheaper. So you should be thinking and considering this fall and this winter. You will see that in the stats during the winter is always the best time to buy, especially because all it does is rain here and get super cloudy. My investors, same thing. Let's talk about what we need to do to get rid of your tax bills by the end of the year. We've got bonus depreciation back in play. Let's get rid of our tax bills through real estate. Send us a message in regards to that one. Happy to go into that. And for my sellers, it's actually a maybe. It depends on your next goal on whether you should be doing now or you should wait till the spring. That's a specific conversation for that. And our call to action is I want you, the listener, to do your own research on the companies or sectors that you're looking for and look for things that are going to be massively affected by lower rates. What businesses could have a positive impact because debt is cheaper, both on the consumer side and on the business side. And don't forget about real estate. With this transaction-based recession, we are going to go through a nice bull run. And that bull run could be 24 months. It could also be 60. It's going to depend on how the overall economy plays out. But when you're in the bottom basement, selling the same amount of homes we did in 1991, it's all up from here. As usual, during this, we probably missed something. Let us know what we missed in the comments. And do you think there are other opportunities out there? Or do you think that the Federal Reserve and the BLS need to massively change and their data sucks? And the government's going to make mistakes. It's hard to run a giant machine like this and not make mistakes, but these mistakes are your opportunities. So hit that subscribe button so we can chat about more data and more economic news and real estate in the future and help you make the best decisions.